Okay, 2:01 Eastern Standard Time. Let's get started. Welcome to the show. My name is Bill Bain. I am with Tosibox. I'm joined on this call by Jerry Reeves, our Chief Engineer, and Sandra Turner, our Channel Director. We want to say thank you very much to Rena and the folks at Energy Control for gathering this up. On this call, based on our poll, which we're closing down now, we have got a mix of building automation and industrial automation. So we'll speak to both, and Jerry, you could speak to this for sure, there ain't much difference. The only difference really are the brands, the large OEM brands. So whether you're connecting a building or a traffic intersection or water wastewater or a factory floor, it's really all the same. The need for cybersecurity, network segmentation, the networking's the same, CCTV, no matter what you're putting through these networks, it's really the same. So poll is closed. Thank you for taking that. Let's get started. Before we start, I want to remind everyone that at any point, feel free to put your questions into the software, the GoToWebinar software. We'll curate those as we go. We'll answer them. You can also raise your hand. And if it makes sense, we can unmute you and do that. There will be time for Q&A. So why don't we get started? I'll do a little bit of an overview, probably less than 10 minutes or around 10 minutes to create the context. And then we'll get into the show, and that is actually doing a live demo where you'll see Jerry create a network, a secure layer 2, layer 3 point-to-point network. That'll take him all of 10 seconds. He'll then connect devices behind that for his operational network. That could be a pumping station, a machine, an HVAC, you name it. He'll then show you how easy it is to send that up to the cloud for your always-on data acquisition. Maybe it's your Niagara framework or something like that, or your SCADA system. And then he will extend the network out to one of you. This is where I ask one of the folks on this call to grab your mobile device, go into the App Store, Android or Google, doesn't matter, iOS or Google, grab the Tosibox app. Don't do anything with it. But once we create our network, Jerry's going to show the ease of access control, and that's an important function of automated networking. So it doesn't matter if one or more of you do this. Please participate. It'll be fun. But Jerry, are you there?
Hey, Bill. How are you doing?
We're doing great, man. 70 degrees in Atlanta. The golf course is full. Let's get started. I'll go through my part, then you can fire up. So Jerry, keep an eye out for questions. Now let's get on the same page, everyone. Here we are, the 21st century, 2021. We've gone beyond building automation or even that building or SCADA system, however you want to call it, your Niagara, inductive automations, you name it. We're now at a place where it's cyber physical. In some verticals, they call this Industry 4.0 or industrial IoT. No matter what we call it, we're focused a little bit today on smart buildings. It's remote access, it's networking, it's data, analytics, ML, AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's optimization over just control. Jerry, we used to think of, we still say something like, gosh, remote control is so 2015. Really, in today's world, it's optimization over control. You still need to control, but optimizing is the key. So that's where we are. Today, we're talking about OT networks, operational networks. Different and distinct, completely distinct from IT networks. Those networks designed to run your ERP system, your email client, all of that stuff. Today, we're focused on OT networks. Those networks designed for various protocols, manufacturers, engaging the physical layer, processes, machinery, getting work done, all right? Again, only the brands change depending on the industry. If this were a full industrial house, we'd be talking Siemens, Rockwell, and Schneider, so some of them cross over. So today we're talking OT, and if you don't know by now, it's time to get your operational devices off of the IT networks. Certainly it's time to get them off the internet, but it's also time to get them off of the operational networks. So what we're talking and why you were invited today by the folks at Energy Control is this. Tosibox is in reality automated operational networking. We're going to highlight that in a live demo and coming up in a few minutes. We're also automated network segmentation. In that first 10 seconds when you set up your first lock, you've got network segmentation, you've got the full network. We're zero touch or embedded cybersecurity. So we've automated and embedded the cybersecurity, and we're also that smart layer between IT and OT. Maybe that comes into play, maybe it doesn't. Many customers run separate OT networks. Some customers like to combine them somewhere along the line. Maybe it's up in the cloud or somewhere else. So this is what you folks are being asked to do, no matter where you are. Maybe you're an end user, an organization, maybe you're a system integrator. You're being asked to do this. Get everybody connected to everything, and everything connected to everything else. Oh, and by the way, let's bring it up to the cloud and have AI optimizing back down at the far edge. That is unnetworkable on so many layers: cybersecurity, cost, complexity, if you try to use traditional IT. These are the roadblocks. We do this in 150 countries, now more than that. These are the roadblocks to bringing everything online, which is what your customers are starting to expect. Cybersecurity, scalability, cost. Now, cybersecurity and cost, there's a definite connection there. Scalability and cost, interoperability. Think about this, Jerry. We talk about this. Even though the large manufacturers of the world, your Rockwells and Siemens and Honeywells, would love it if you only had their gear in your location, customers are now starting to create a more tailored approach to their operational world. Thus, they've got to have systems like Tosibox that are interoperable and tie everything together. You want to speak to that at all?
No, I think it's, you're right, Bill. It's a, more and more of these devices are connecting. More and more of this automation gear, whether it's building or industrial, is coming networked. And the way to extract value from it is to leverage those network connections. You've got PLCs and controllers now that are web-based. Some of them have additional reporting and alarming functions. But a lot of that's based on the network ability of those devices, and having a good solid infrastructure, network infrastructure with security, is the best way to enable all that value.
You got that right. So when we're talking building automation, if you're in the industrial space, same thing applies. Here's what you've got to have as you build out your OT infrastructure. You've got to have frictionless IT and OT. In other words, it's got to play well with IT. All right? It's got to be layer 2 or layer 3. In building automation, layer 2 comes into play for your backnet IP stuff. Right? In industrial automation, it comes into play for your Rockwell gear, your Siemens gear. You need that layer 2 connectivity. You've got to be able to have persistent cloud data acquisition up to the cloud or wherever you're concentrating your OT networks. That's a must these days. It's no longer a nice to have. It's got to be fully edge-to-edge cyber secure, and it's got to be future-proofed and scalable. It's got to work financially. You've got to be able to make money doing this stuff. That's what we're bringing to you today. That's what Energy Control is bringing to you today. If you're in the system integrator community, it's clear to us that you get to 10x your customer base without hiring headcount. You get to focus less on IT and more on customer applications. Indeed, with Tosibox, you get to do things you didn't know how to do before. Let me say it differently. You get to do things your customers didn't know you can do, and you're able to do things your customers are going to start expecting. So that's the wins you're going to get today coming away from this. We don't have to dig too much into this. We've already mentioned it. IT is not built for the OT. On the far left, your Cisco Palo Alto, simply not designed for operational world, too expensive, too complicated, which leads to too many attack vectors if you don't get it perfect. All right. Also doesn't match the financial models. The second column would be more single network, grab a cradle point, grab a Sierra Wireless, let's get an IPsec tunnel going, build a firewall, not scalable. You can do it. Couple hours, page 47 in the notebook, you can figure out how to do a firewall, encryption and all that. Again, not scalable. Tosibox, and why you're here today, is networking designed from the OT up. So you get that IT quality, point-to-point, layer 2 and layer 3 networking, but you get it at a cost model and a complexity model that matches today's scale. So if you look at this graph, if you look to build out your global infrastructure, I don't care if you've got buildings around Fort Lauderdale or you're doing energy management with customers in Dubai, doesn't matter. It's all in the same local area network. But as you look to build this out using traditional IT, you will very quickly lose hold of the cost, complexity, and cybersecurity risk. With Tosibox, we flatten that curve. Because of the standardization, because of the automation, you maintain control of the complexity, the cybersecurity, and the cost profile. It's just that simple. We've automated traditional IT. Some of you, and there's a column here that usually we talk about for the industrial space. So for the 30% of you who are in the industrial space, there's a fourth column we put here. That's your EWANs, TeamViewer, Secomia, the cloud-based VPN solutions. That's legacy tech, pardon me, that's legacy technology. Nobody's allowing their data to be insecured up on somebody else's hard drive anymore. They're not cybersecurity products, but they were good products 15 years ago to overcome IT barriers. So as we move on, we've already mentioned you don't have to think about the cybersecurity, at least the networking cybersecurity. There's other aspects of cybersecurity, physical, backing up in the cloud and all that. But for the network security and the network segmentation, that's all embedded. We've got that covered. Two things that I like to talk about here, forget the fact that it creates itself. You're going to see that in a minute. But we're not engaging the public internet space. So when you're building, when you are out there creating infrastructure for your customers, you're not engaging public IP addresses, dynamic DNS server farms, any of that stuff that's hackable. There is no attack vector into your systems that you build for your customers. The other thing we like to highlight is physical first multi-factor authentication. That is, a lot of systems are username and password hacked. Some folks think they're really cool with their two-step authentication where you get a text hacked. It's with Tosibox, and this is the accepted Department of Homeland Security, you name it. It's physical first multi-factor, meaning you've got to have something in your hand and know something. So a physical and a knowledge factor. That takes your cybersecurity profile an order of magnitude greater. Again, if you have questions, put them in. Let's talk about how this is IT friendly. Jerry, we talk often about how 5-6 years ago, we used to tiptoe past IT and go right to the controls people. Now we knock on IT's door first. They know they've got to connect this stuff. They know they need proper segmentation. They know they need cybersecurity. With Tosibox, you can build a Class A network behind the lock. It's already a firewall. All that is automated. It'll work behind their firewalls, their corporate firewalls, no matter how deep you are inside their network, right? It's all, you don't require static IPs, no inbound ports, and you never need to ask IT to punch any holes in their firewall. It's going to work automatically with the ports they've got open already. Your traditional port 80, 443, and so forth. And if they won't let you in, and that's actually an old story now, Jerry, it's funny. If they won't let you in, pop a SIM card in, go cellular, create your own private LTE network. On a side note, for building automation people on the call, it's not uncommon for the BAS system with Tosibox to just get the internet from guest Wi-Fi. All the security you need is built in, and you just add, if they won't let you in, just ask for guest Wi-Fi. Plug it right into your lock, you're done. As I start to wrap up, it's easy to get started with Tosibox, right? You already know where to buy it. In that 10 seconds, that first 10 seconds, you've created your security and network segmentation. You've layered in and automated your access control all the way down to the port, device, let's say the site, the device, the port and protocol level, right? So that's deep cybersecurity. If you want to have a vendor go in and work on something, you can give that vendor access all the way down to a MAC address, all right? They can go nowhere else. But also they've built in that first 10 seconds, you've built in the ability to have lock to lock or machine to machine communication. Some examples of how people use that would be a pumping system, a water wastewater system for a small municipality or a large municipality. You could have, say, multiple disparately located pumping stations reporting up to a master water wastewater station where maybe you have a SCADA server right behind that master lock. Or maybe you've got a campus of buildings you're doing, or a municipality with 20 or 30 buildings. You don't want to go up to Azure, so you just create infrastructure, more operational infrastructure. You put your Niagara server right behind your master controller, and you've got buildings reporting right up to a master building. And you can also, in that first 10 seconds, everything is ready to report up to a virtual environment. Maybe that's Amazon, maybe it's Azure, or any virtual environment, VMware and so forth. All right, so doing any, you'll notice I have building automation logos there. That could also be your SCADA systems, historians, you name it, WinCC, Factory Talk, whatever you guys use out there. So Jerry, I'm not going to stop too much on this. I mean, the use cases are obvious here. You build your infrastructure using locks and keys as if you were building using Lego blocks. One key, one lock per site. We've already mentioned you can have a Class A network behind a single lock. One key per user. That user can be given access to an unlimited number of networks. You can concentrate all of those networks up to a single location for wide area, larger scale data collection and access control. And you can consume Tosibox both by buying hardware or in a complete managed services too. So if you don't want to do anything up front, you can do a full managed services, everything's handled for you. Jerry, these are all building automation brands. For the folks on the call that are not building automation, you can replace this with ExxonMobil, Kinder Morgan, power companies, Caterpillar and stuff like that, Otis Elevator. So I'll leave it up to you, Jerry. Do we have any questions that you think are maybe worthwhile talking to the whole group, or do you want to just go into the demo?
Let's jump to the demo and then we'll curate a few questions here in a minute, okay? Let me go ahead and get started. Bill, did you ask for a volunteer early on?
I did. Let's see. Did anyone get it and raise your hand if you got the app? Don't be shy. All right. Bruce, Jacob, Jason, Joe, Jordan, go grab the app. It'll only take you a minute, and raise your hand when you get it. Thank you, Michael. Michael's a fun guy. He's a nice guy, I could already tell. So we have a volunteer. Michael, don't do anything with the app. Jerry will walk you through that once he creates his local infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on a quick second. I think I've got a focus problem here. We'll get this.
It looks good now.
There we go, a little bit better. Let's go with that. Okay, very good. Excellent. So let's get started. And what we're going to do here in the demo is we are going to create Tosibox infrastructure. All right. We're going to create infrastructure that we're going to use for remote access. We're going to create infrastructure by connecting different automation networks up to a centralized location, much like you see on my diagram here on my background. Okay. And the important part here, everyone, is we're going to do this in an automated and always cyber secure fashion. All right. And this would be very similar to networks you might build in your operational space. And as Bill has mentioned many times during the course of this webinar, it doesn't matter if you're in building automation with HVAC control and lighting control, or if you're in industrial automation with water, wastewater, or machines, or that sort of thing. It's pretty much all the same, all right? But the important part here is, and I think, Bill, we want people to look at this, you know, in the context of how would I do it today and what does Tosibox afford me? Because you're going to see that many of these maneuvers that I do not take much time at all. And if you can do the same technique in your day-to-day, you'll rapidly see the efficiencies in your business and operations, right? So what I have here is I have a few networks. I've got a building automation network down here to my right. I've got a Siemens industrial automation network up here to the top here. And in the middle here, I actually have a critical spaces controller from Phoenix Controls that I'm going to, it's not quite segmented yet, and it's not quite secured yet. So I'm going to do that first. We need to finish off this middle network right here, and we're going to use a Tosibox lock to do that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this lock, I'll put it on my rack. I'll go ahead and give it some power. I'm going to give it an internet connection. I'm going to plug my controller into it. All right. And just by doing that, I've segmented the network. I've put a firewall right out of the box, put a firewall right in front of that controller, and it's now segmented from a building corporate network. It's segmented from the internet, and that device is secure. And here's what's great, everyone. No one can get into that network at this point, because that lock that I just put in that space only talks to Tosibox devices. But it hasn't seen any other Tosibox devices because I'm missing my next step. And my next step is to adopt this lock as part of my network. All right. If Bill was here and he had his key, he could use his key and adopt that lock and make it part of his network. Okay. Or we have Michael and Jason that have raised their hands. If they had a master key, they could use theirs and adopt that lock. And the way this goes, everyone, is we use a USB key from Tosibox. This key comes with a crypto processor chip on board. This chip is what gives me my physical factor of authentication. I need this key plus my password to gain access to my Tosibox networks. And I also use this key to adopt my latest lock into my overall network scheme. And I do that very simply by going like this. I take this key, all right? I plug this key in that lock for 10 seconds. During these 10 seconds, we're swapping security certificates, reconfiguring the firewall, setting up the VPN security, and initializing the very first access control for that key, which now becomes the master key for that lock. After those 10 seconds, take my key out, and I'm finished. Tosibox automation, okay, has now adopted that lock into my overall infrastructure. Okay, I didn't have to make a decision about security. I didn't have to jump into firewalls and say, hey, I need to give myself access. All right. And a few seconds ago, I said, no one can get through that lock. Now, the only person that can make access through that lock is my master key. And we'll see that here in a second. Bill, what are we missing?
I think you've just nailed it. For the gentleman who asked me the question about Secomia or any of those guys, I've just answered that. So that should have your answer. At the end, we could do a little chat on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that that lock is part of my Vicon system, all right, that I've been working with before. You see this Vicon South Carolina Tosibox just popped in right here in my list. In this list here, everyone, this list exists in my Tosibox software. This software is securely installed on my PC. This is not a web page or web portal out in cyberspace that everybody has access to. This exists securely on my PC behind my Tosibox credentials. All right. I must have my USB key. and my password to gain access to this. So completely secure access to this single pane of glass that gives me access to my networks. This list are all the devices that either I've created and adopted with my Tosibox key, or that other users have created and given me access to. All right. Each one of these is an operational network that I can engage. Now we've gone ahead and connected to this Vicon South Carolina Tosibox here. I also have my Tosibox new headquarters network here just to my right. That's the Honeywell gear. I also have the Siemens automation gear right up here to my right as well. And I'm connecting to each one of these networks individually. All right. And you can see that I've got two devices next to my new headquarters lock. All right. I've got two devices up here that we'll see when I connect to my Siemens automation. And very quickly, in just a short amount of time, I've been able to connect to 3 separate operational networks that now we can engage as part of our day-to-day work. All right. Here's that Vicon PCI that sits adjacent to me right here. Quick double click takes me right to the web interface of that controller on the other side of that lock. All right. Since I have these devices, I can also perform other techniques like right clicking, seeing if a device is available on my network just by pinging it. I can right click, launch copy an IP address or a MAC address using third-party software, or even open remote desktop for a Windows PC or server that might exist as part of my network as well. So Tosibox gives you the ability not only to create your networks, okay, connect to multiple networks, but you can directly engage your devices through this centralized window here, all right, as part of the Tosibox key software. Okay.
So while you're doing that, Jerry, I also want to mention for those of you who asked a couple of questions, that none of these networks that Jerry's creating are what we call routed connections. They're not these traditional VPN layers or traditional just IT network routed through the cloud. These are robust point-to-point networks. And there's real value in that you don't get with the EWANs and Secomiyas of the world. Jerry, why don't you give us one or two of the real important reasons why that layer 2 matters?
Right. So point-to-point networks are crucial for everyone in the automation space. All right. And again, agnostic to traffic, industrial, building, automation. What we're able to do with point-to-point connections is not only fully secure them end-to-end, all right, but we're also able to give you and your customers the ability to connect with layer 2 capability. And what that is that's the layer just above the electrical layer where you see the link lights and all that stuff going back and forth on your network. We're at the data link layer that a lot of protocols such as Profinet, Ethernet IP, BACnet, CC-Link, others have a part of their Ethernet stack runs on. So when you go and you open up your Workbench software and you go to browse and discover devices on your building automation network, or you open up your Siemens TIA portal software and you use the ISO protocol to discover Siemens PLCs on that network, that all happens at that layer 2 level. And with Tosibox being point-to-point, you can now do that remotely. You do not have to be locally on that network, or I should say physically at that network. You can connect with Tosibox layer 2, and now your computer, and you see mine here at address 10.52, my computer is now physically on that network, even though I'm in a remote location. So layer 2 connectivity through a point-to-point connection that you get with Tosibox is absolutely a game changer when it comes to operational support and connectivity.
Yeah, and this is what we talk about when we say we've automated the more traditional Cisco style, for lack of a better word, IT networks. You get to engage that machine layer as if you were plugged into it, sitting on the bucket in front of it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Okay. So, Bill, let's create some infrastructure.
Let's do that. What you're about to see, again, already programmed in that first 10 seconds, but Jerry's going to show you how easy it is to take your disparately located buildings, no matter where they are in the world, or pumping stations, or machines, and send them up to a unified space somewhere in the cloud.
Yep. So what I've done, everyone, is I've connected to my infrastructure hub. This is this device over here that's up in New York. All right, I'm down here in South Carolina with these three separate networks. And what I want to do is I actually want to take this network and my top network, and I'm going to connect it to my data center. And to do that, I can very simply go to devices, connect locks, grab my data center lock, grab my new headquarters lock, grab my Siemens automation lock, hit next, layer 3 for data, next, save and finish. And just with a few checkboxes, a radio button and a save, I've now added those networks to my data center network. 15, 30 seconds from now, these icons will turn green and confirm that this lock and that top lock have now negotiated their own fully secure point-to-point connection to that data center through which we can traverse, or we can communicate BACnet IP from our building controllers, and we can communicate Profinet, OPC UA, Modbus, you name it, on our industrial controllers. All right, all up to that centralized location where we might be running a historian, might be running a SCADA system, maybe a web supervisor. All right, all across our entire global network. All right, Bill, what did I miss there?
Yeah, that's interesting. So let me say a couple things about what Jerry just did. You notice it took him, I don't know, 10 seconds because the program is already done with the automation. The other thing about those connections is it doesn't matter if any users are in there. Jerry can pull his key out. That's his remote access. Those are persistent and self-healing networks. So if they're in a building, in a place in northern Canada, or at a pipeline out in Texas, those networks will find themselves, power goes out, anything changes, they will continue to recreate those persistent data connections. That's a big deal.
That's right. While Bill was talking, I just did the same thing with my Vicon controller. I connected my Vicon controller up to my Vicon cloud, okay, and made that connection as well. So now I have a Vicon controller in Texas, one in South Carolina. They're now both talking to the Vicon cloud. So if I remove my filter here, everyone, we've only been at this for a few minutes. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 remote access connections. I just sent these two up to here, and I sent this one over there. So 3 more infrastructure connections. We've created 7 secure networks in what, Bill?
Right,
7
10,
minutes?
15 minutes, right.
I mean, so what would that take with traditional IT? Probably a week. Static IP addresses, different ISPs, network architects, your Cisco engineer to program all this and secure it. And we just did it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, not to mention, what do those expensive Cisco switches and so forth cost?
Exactly. Exactly. So, Bill, we've made our infrastructure, buddy. Anybody else want to help us out with some of the details?
Yeah, let's do this. We've got Jason and Michael out there who've raised their hands, and I think we also had, let's extend the network securely out to Jason and Michael.
Okay. So if you'll work on getting them unmuted, let's start with Jason.
Jason, you're unmuted, my man.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So Jason, if you'll skip that tour or skip that startup wizard, and you want to get right to your QR code reader.
Got it.
Okay. And Michael, I want you to hold tight because you got the app also. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Jason access to my new headquarters, my Siemens automation. I've got a demo down in Florida. How about my data center and maybe my camera system over in Finland? So 5 networks, Jason. You ready for that QR code?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
Right.
So now can you hear me?
All right, finished. So now you create your own password, Jason.
Okay.
And while you're creating your password, let me tell everybody what just happened. That QR code extended physical trust from my USB key to Jason's mobile device. His mobile device, okay, his physical device is now a trusted Tosibox key, and now he has to create his password. Once he does so, he will now be a trusted Tosibox key, and he will have access to those 5 networks. Okay? So let's do the same thing with Michael while we're at it.
Michael, unmute yourself.
Hey, Michael, you there?
He's got to unmute himself. He might have raised his hand by accident, and he's getting picked on now. All right, let's move past Michael. So let's focus back on Jason.
There we go.
There we go. Hey, Michael.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Loud
sir.
and clear, brother.
So Michael, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. If you'll skip your tour, okay, your startup wizard, I'll give you access down here to the Vicon gear, okay, and maybe our camera demo in Finland, okay, and our demo in Florida. So another 5 networks, but different networks. You ready for that QR code?
Skip the tour, enable the
yes,
camera, should be good.
Go for it.
There you go.
Got it?
Okay, you create your password. And look, everyone, in 2 or 3 minutes here, we've extended the network to Jason and Michael, 2 different areas of the country, separate from South Carolina, and given them access to New York, South Carolina, Texas, Finland, Florida, with checkboxes, radio buttons, QR codes, technology we're all familiar with today. And we didn't have to know anything about access control lists like you might with traditional IT. We didn't have to know anything about Active Directory like you would have with Microsoft. And we didn't have to go to page 47 of a device manual, figure out how to add, manage, and delete users. So now Jason and Michael have access to different parts of my network. All right. And Jason, you still out there? So what I could do is maybe I was a little hasty in giving Jason access to my data center, so I can remove that checkbox, okay? And I'm going to remove him from Florida also. Hit next, leave 3, remove 2, next, save, and finish. And the next time Jason gets into his app, he's only going to have 3 of those networks. All right? Look how easy it is to manage the access control across your global operational infrastructure without having to engage IT and without having to worry about compromising your cybersecurity.
Right. Not engaging IT, but pleasing IT and making them happy because you've got cybersecurity and full network segmentation. And most likely, you're going to go through IT as you start to secure South Florida, wherever you guys are.
That's right.
Yep. Hey, Jer, do you want to open it up for a few questions and then we'll wrap it up?
Let's do it, buddy.
All right. Everybody is unmuted. You can unmute yourselves or raise your hand or whatever if you have any last questions. If not, you will get a recording of this sometime in the next 24. Michael, do you have a question?
No, I just unmuted myself.
Okay, got it. So you will receive a copy of this. You know where to purchase. We have starter kits. You can get started with starter kits. You can get started with infrastructure starter kits, where you actually get sites and users and cloud hosting. It's easy to get started, folks. Thank you, Rena and AJ and the team down there in Fort Lauderdale. If there's no other questions, Jer, great job. Let's wrap it up. 41 minutes, you guys learned a new trick.
Yeah, I'm going to take Jason and Michael out of my network. Do check boxes, remove. They're done. So,
Done.
Great NetLab, bud. That was fun.
All right, see you guys. Thank you very much.